with the impact fund?
Let me give some background. And I have to say, I'm totally a novice at this whole area of investment funds, real estate, and I'm a social worker, working in the community. And so when we started talking about setting up a fund, my thought was, yeah, it's simple. If we incorporate, get a board of directors together, collect some money, and start buying property. I mean, that was my thought. We engaged an attorney who happens to be here, Brett Eager, and so he explained to me, Bill, it doesn't work that way. There are a lot of regulations that oversee investment funds because you're dealing with other people's money. And it's like, of course, that makes sense. But I had no idea how many regulations there were out there that we had to deal with. And so Brett has helped us over the last 8 months or so to become legal. So we started this process last year, as I mentioned, in somebody's living room, talking about setting up a fund. As of August 1st of this year, what is that, about 2 months ago, we are now legal and we can now start to accept money. And so we started thinking about what kind of investments can people make. And we were throwing around the idea, what about $10,000 per share? And I thought, wow, I don't think I could do $10,000. So I thought, I don't know, is that a good amount? Then I thought about, I have some money in a savings account, which I kept in there because the last Great Recession, everything lost 30% off the top, except for my money in my savings account, where I was earning almost zero interest, but at least it didn't go down. And so I thought, I'm just going to leave it there. And I thought, gosh, I could put that money in as an investor for $10,000. I might get like 2%, 3%, less than market, I know that, but that's still better than 0.1%. And so I thought, I could be an investor. And if I could be an investor, then there must be a ton of other people who are more wealth than me that could probably buy a share or two. So that's kind of how we started to talk about, let's have $10,000 investment shares. And so we started to talk about it in the community. We went out, we had these meetings. What do you think? Does this have any legs? Will it be able to function if we had $10,000 investment? A lot of people said we could do that. We would be interested in investing. The attorney, Brett, said, why don't we do a $1,000 share too? That way, newer workers, younger people who don't have the net worth you need for $10,000, they could still come in and participate at $1,000. So we decided to have those two levels. Some people said, gosh, if you have 1,000, who would do 10,000? But it doesn't work that way. It really does. People feel like if they can do the upper level, they'll do it. And so we've been going now for 2 months. We have to hit $500,000 by the end of 12 months. That's sort of our goal, to show that we can operate as a bona fide fund. $500,000 doesn't quite make us a player. Doesn't make us a player, but I think it kind of gets us there, that we're going to have viability. And as of today,
drum roll, please.
yes, as of today, we're about $250,000. So not bad for 2 months. I can't imagine why. We had a lot more people actually who pledged that they could do this. But it's a long distance from saying you're going to do it to actually sending in a check with the documents. But I've been kind of harassing people and saying, come on, come through now.
They're waiting on their liquidity events to happen.
But it is new.
Okay, great. Lisa, did you want to add? Otherwise, okay. So, Tony, you threw out some numbers and some terms. You said SBA, what's that? The Small Business Administration. You said 504, what's that? Well, it's a financing tool that allows businesses to purchase their commercial property at very low equity levels, around 10% or so. You said 7A, that is working capital under the SBA program that allows businesses to have, few $100,000 up to millions of dollars in working capital. So tell me, I'm going to tell you what I thought I heard, and then you can respond as well. What you're saying is that CDC Small Business and LISC are putting together a fund that allows small businesses to be able to purchase their property where they're operating with 10% equity in. They can get that from friends, family, wherever, other equity sources, and a 90% loan that allows them to be able to take down that property, own it, and then the mortgage line item, the rental line item becomes steady because they know that they don't have a landlord that's going to raise the rent on them. How does that sound, Tony?
Right on. I will just add that you're right. So it's a partnership with our organizations, and you may have heard one of the previous panelists talk about new market tax credits. So it is a leverage of the sale of the new market tax credits. So you sell the tax credits, and then you also get some investors to bring in some debt capital, put it together for a fund, and that allows you to take the money a lot farther, make a lot more loans, help a lot more small businesses. So below market interest rates, there's an interest-only period, it's more flexible credit parameters. Typically for a conventional loan, you're looking at 1.0, again, this is kind of technical, debt coverage ratio, or 1.2, and we'll go down to 1.0. So basically that means it's a little bit more affordable, or for businesses that might be a little bit, greener, kind of just starting, and they don't quite have the cash flow that, you would need for a conventional loan. This is a great product to, help them buy their space. And like you said, key is, build that equity and have control over your future.
Yeah, and this is outside of the SBA, which is a traditional tool. This is a separate product. It looks like the SBA product takes the best of it, but it allows for more flexibility with lower debt service coverage ratios, so the cash flow can be, a little softer. Some of the other equity sources can be softer, so that allows for a little more flexibility than the SBA program. And then Andrew, I think you did a really good job of describing your product and what this is all about. But you as a business owner, and I'm sure you encourage people to come by your business with love, it is an opportunity for a local business that's in a community to not only be owned by you and maybe the bank, but really to be owned by the people in this community. And they have an opportunity through their everyday dollars and through an investment of being able to be part of a public offering to own part of this business in their community. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And as Bill mentioned earlier, we've also been working with Brett Eager, one of the few lawyers out there or attorneys out there that are really fighting for this type of creative financing. And so someone who has a decent amount of knowledge and also willing to learn as we go, because this space really is pretty new. There are a few folks out there that are really trying to figure out how to make it viable long term. There are folks up in the Bay Area that are doing creative funding. There are folks down here in LA, and we're all just trying to learn from each other to figure out how can a community-owned or community-financed business thrive for both the community and the business itself. And will that cap opportunities long term? Will it create more opportunities? Will it create more community investment? If you're a part owner, are you more likely to go and buy your coffee from there, or to buy your groceries, or to get catering from there, or tell other people about it? Likely. But are you also going to be feeling like you need more power? And so we're all just kind of learning, what does it look like to really bring people together and have one mission of community development and viability? And then how can we replicate that model so that when gentrification kind of roars the ugly part of its head in your community, how can you stand against it and say, we actually own this, and we can say something against the bad parts of what you're trying to bring in and still be viable for the people that have been in the community long term. And I think that's what we all want, is power in the community to speak against the negatives of gentrification so that we can all benefit from it, and not just the new people, but the people that have been there a long time, and they'll hopefully be owners and customers. So.
It appears that I have a shadow member of this panel here today. We've mentioned his name several times now. I think everybody is interested in who is Brett. Brent or Brett? Brett Eager. Round of applause for Brett. Here he is right there. There he is. The shy gentleman right here, waving everybody everybody out. Thank you for doing this and for standing with community and being the expert in this area. It's great to have you with us as part of this conversation today. I, of course, really was thinking that you were probably here because you were worried that Bill was going to say something he wasn't supposed to say. And so you needed to help him through that. So now that we've level set and we kind of know what are these products, what are they doing, there are 3 different kinds and very unique but very important. Let's talk about what were some of the trends that really drove you to consider putting out this kind of strategy. What have you been seeing in the market that really led to the reason for why these kinds of products were so important?
Well, I think there are 2 examples that I could cite. Number 1, there was a Japanese gift shop on 2nd Street, right in the heart of Little Tokyo. And my understanding is that the owners, about 5 years ago, really would have liked to have sold to a new owner who would be a part of the community. No one stepped up, and so it was purchased by a real estate investment company, Beverly Hills, and it is now the Shoe Palace, a tennis shoe shop, which is the 3rd tennis shoe shop in Little Tokyo. And nothing against people wearing shoes and all that, but there's only so much land, there's only so many stores in Little Tokyo. It's only 3 blocks by 3 blocks. We don't need 3 tennis shoe shops. High-end
custom tennis shoe shops.
That's right, very expensive. So anyway, we thought, gosh, if we had the money, we could have bought that property. The owner would probably wanted us to buy this property. The other thing is we have a Gold Line train station in Little Tokyo. They are constructing the Metro Connector, which will connect the Little Tokyo Gold Line station to 7th and Figueroa, which will make the Little Tokyo station something of a small hub connecting Union Station, 7th and Figueroa, and guaranteed it's going to increase foot traffic, which is good for businesses. It's not a bad thing. But on the other hand, guaranteed it's going to raise rents, it's going to raise land prices. And that station, the connector, is supposed to be done in 2 years. And so the other panel talked about speed. We were told, land prices are changing so fast, you have to move fast because you need to, if you're going to buy, you got to buy it now. So we've been, like John Wooden says, be quick but don't hurry. So here we are. We're trying to move fast but be diligent and prudent at the same time to get this thing going so that we can buy land, we can try to preserve it for the small businesses and to fight off the gentrification that we know is going to keep going and getting worse over the next, say, 2, 3, 5 years.
I would just say flexibility. We talked a lot about more flexible credit terms, not having some of the regulation that is tied with the SBA product itself. So an example right now for a product we're looking at is a ophthalmologist in, I think, Buena Park, was actually able to get approved through the SBA 504 program, but as she moved through the funding process, there's a few technical things that she's not going to be able to satisfy, or at least not be able to do it right away. So being able to step in with an alternative product that still has really great financing terms to be able to meet some of those borrowers who get into a situation maybe like that, and oh shoot, something went sideways. We need something that's not going to be predatory lending or something with really crazy interest rate that's going to really impact their cash flow or their ability to stay in that space. So having that product that is more flexible, that can come in and meet the need, or kind of save the day in a way sometimes when some of your traditional financing sources just aren't going to work. So that's what I.
With the 504 program, there is a requirement that the purchaser, the business that's purchasing, that they occupy 51% of the actual property. Will our product still require that?
So it's greater than 50%, so it's the same, but the way we'll look at some of the if you want tenants in the building, or if there's tenants in the property, we're more flexible with how we can use some of that tenant income, where SBA wants the business, the underlying occupying business, to be able to repay the loan, by itself with no consideration for tenant income. So we have some flexibility with, okay, hey, you're in 60% and you have a tenant in 40%, and maybe you think, in 5 years you'll grow into that space. Well, you may need a little bit of help, repaying the loan during that time. You have a tenant in there, they can be paying you rent, which we can then include in the analysis to help you qualify. And then as you grow, that tenant, can move on or what have you, and then you can actually take all the space for yourself, and it can be, can transition you as your business grows.
Andrew, what were some of the trends that you were seeing?
Part of our initial plan was to create this healthy food business that the community would automatically kind of see as meeting a need in the neighborhood and would flock to, and we'd become so successful with that, we'd have to find ways to grow and expand what we're doing. And what has actually turned out to be the case is the community has changed rapidly in the few years that we have been open, to where we lost 3 grocery stores within 4 square miles while we were planning to start our business. And then within a year after opening, USC brought in a Trader Joe's right by us. And so it really kind of threw us for we felt like we were a little bit in a washing machine, just figuring out what is actually going on, how are we to be viable. And we recognized that the community was rapidly transforming at that time. So I'm in the West Adams Expo Park neighborhood, and it's been on curbed, hottest neighborhoods twice in the last 4 years. So property values have doubled in that time. So all of these things started changing, and we just recognized we need to be more a part of helping our community figure out how to weather these changes rather than just meeting some of the basic needs. And so because of that, we felt that we could bring those things together and create equity and ownership opportunities, so that we wouldn't essentially be displaced in our building, or other people near us wouldn't be. And can we come up with a way that our community can see viability, to where maybe we bring on 5 businesses that want to become community owned, and there's community investment projects where people can join in together and say, hey, I want to be a part of that restaurant, I want to be a part owner in that. And we can actually create pathways to ownership and pathways to starting new businesses that don't exist in our neighborhood. Because I got turned down by 14 different banks when applying for a business loan. I recognized how difficult it was to get startup funding in an urban poor neighborhood, then to actually execute it. We want to be able to create a little bit smoother on-ramp for folks, but we knew we couldn't do it without actually owning the business fully, which meant to us having full say in the interest rates or the repayment rates, because our interest rates have pretty much doubled since we first took out our loan, and because it all is adjustable with the market. So I think you have these challenges that you deal with, and the loan wasn't bad, it isn't bad, but it is cumbersome years later to still be carrying it. So how do we create a pathway for people to really not be 5 years from now underwater, or unable to be able to make their regular payments with a reasonable revenue source, but just one that doesn't grow as fast as its loan rate does. So we just recognized there were challenges, and we needed to figure out how to be in the middle of that and help bridge our neighbors who have been there for 50, 70 years, some of them, but how do we actually create a pathway to what's going to be the case, what's going to be the economy in 10 years? Because if we're trying to bring them up to right now or to 5 years ago, we're going to be really behind by the time we actually get there. So how do we look ahead and start preparing them for what's in the future?
Yeah, that's super compelling. I'm listening to you. I'm thinking about all of those businesses that are in neighborhoods that don't have the command of language that you have, that don't even recognize that there are 14 institutions that they could go to, that just don't have access to certain other resources to be ready for these kinds of circumstances. So this is very, very compelling. Let's talk a little bit about the role of the community, and what kinds of partnerships have you all sort of brought to bear to make sure that these kinds of initiatives happen and can be successful? Your turn, Lisa.
Okay. Basically, our community organizing plan was me following Bill around to all of the people that he knew. But in all seriousness, I think we did sort of a presentation to a lot of also community-based institutions. So lots of boards of community organizations, in addition to doing sort of the regional kind of listening sessions and sort of community briefings, if you will. And so I think that what was also exciting and interesting about something like the Impact Fund is that we're drawing from a regional and even national, right, kind of pool of people who care about Little Tokyo. And I think that that's, it crosses race, it crosses, geography, and we have all income levels, right, and multi-generations. And so I think that that's what's been really exciting and interesting about something like this. And we even have folks who are saying, maybe I'll buy a couple of shares for my grandchildren, right? And it's really about building that community stake. And so many people, I think across Southern California, my family is in Orange, but has a stake in making sure that the Buddhist temples are still there. They still travel from Orange County to come here, right? A lot of the community activities are all here, and people travel from far away. And so I think that, we also have these T-shirts. I have a T-shirt, but I haven't been to one of the outreach events. Bill and a lot of the crew that we put together for the Impact Fund are at all of the community events, letting people know about it. So I think that that's sort of been our strategy. And again, Bill has been collecting, notes of promise, and it's just really about following up with all of them. But Bill, do you have anything more to say about that?
So, I mean, but based on my experience of having watched you all, part of what I also see as community is Bill's legacy with Little Tokyo Service Center. So now, him having founded that organization, led it for so long, that's a partnership that really allows for you to have some operational support in what you're doing. Thinking about even some of the folks who are probably on in Bill's crew that go around and shake folks down and get them to be part of the fund. That's part of the community that's necessary. And the Little Tokyo community recently completed Budokan, right? And you
Not
spent,
quite, almost
okay,
there, right?
but that having raised millions of dollars from the community. You're then building upon that and giving people a different way to invest in the work and in stabilizing the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I'll just say also, and maybe Grant should be up here and not me, but it is a partnership with Little Tokyo, and Todd's very involved. And I think that, we launched on this initiative, in consultation with LTSC, right? Because I think that's the question we often get. Well, why isn't LTSC, why isn't this just a part of, Little Tokyo Service Center? And I think that, number one, there's a difference between, donations and investment. And so we wanted to test out that idea. And also we realized that, LTSC has done so many different things, and I think Budokan has been the focus, but sort of the economic development piece and smaller sort of commercial real estate. It's difficult to make that work, and I think new markets, you have to have a level of scale that doesn't really necessarily fit with the kinds of buildings and properties that are on First Street North, right? And so I think that it's what I think we came to the idea that this is going to be another source of capital for the community to be able to invest in properties that need creative financing.
Tony or Andrew, how are you partnering? What's critical to making your program successful?
I would just say, we looked at, okay, where's our mission and where's our core competencies and where can we align with companies like that? So for us, we have a great delivery system for lending, but getting the new market tax credits can be quite difficult, something that your organization has actually proven, excellent at. So it was a really good match to say, okay, find an organization that we know that has tax credits and that can invest in the kind of projects that we believe in for the end result that we all believe in, which is property ownership. So that's really what I think where we helped, really got to align with you guys was, okay, find that organization where, you can work on the compliance side and the tax credits. We'll work on the lending side and getting the money out the door. We'll, marry those two and we'll put a great product out there.
So two traditional sources of capital, but being able to bring them together in such a way that we create a new product that's responsive to what's happening in communities now. Andrew?
So at its core, partnership has been kind of what we've really looked at from day one. So With Love has really been almost a proof of concept. Can we show that healthy food access and community resources and community space and only hiring within our local community. Can we prove that that is viable? And if so, can we replicate and show people that there's benefit to investing in building in a community? And so what we've done is we've tried to partner with anybody and everybody who wants to partner, whether that be nonprofits or funders or local businesses. I've been working with a bunch of local businesses, and we're starting actually a whole business community, sort of, not necessarily like a business corridor necessarily, but we're just trying to figure out who are all the people that want better in our community and how can we start working together. And so really at its core, we are just trying to figure out who wants to partner, because in my experience, old Los Angeles has been kind of someone starts something and they don't want anybody else to have anything to do with it. And if you go to older parts of communities, people protect themselves a lot because they're afraid of what others will try to do or take advantage. But where we're going, the new kind of economy or the new capitalism is how can we actually hold hands and be stronger together and work together. And that's going to be traditional financing, it's going to be community folks, it's going to be business owners, it's going to be residents, it's going to be all these different groups that say, hey, we're actually stronger together. And that's what's at its core happening. So our partnership with LISC, or our partnership with Self-Help Credit Union, or our partnership with any of these groups is just as core as our partnership with Caveman Kitchen down the street, or the pupusa place that has a little shack. It's just right down the way. The guy, we don't speak the same language, but we speak the same business and the same community, and that's what's helping us partner together. And so these kinds of things, they're all vital to longevity in the community. And I think Rudy maybe had mentioned earlier about maybe not moving so fast, but building on relationships and actually knowing people and knowing people you can trust. I can't stress that enough, because you can partner with a bunch of people, but until you know you can trust them, then it's really hard to actually deeply partner with them. But you have to give everybody a shot, right? You have to talk with them and learn from them, because the person who 20 years ago bought out a local business to start their shoe shop, which right now is maybe not positive, maybe they've learned over the years and they actually recognize that they want to be a potential benefit to the community. So right now they're probably not great, but businesses and business owners and folks, they learn, right? And we all learn and we change. And so I think there's just opportunity in getting to know the people who pull the strings in the businesses and the nonprofits, and that's only done through partnership.
Well, as you were talking, and those of you who haven't had a chance, I really do encourage you to go by Web Cafe. When you get there, you'll see, old people, young people, all kinds of people in the space, and I think it really speaks to this concept that you have clearly partnered with the community, because so many different kinds of people find it to be a place where they are welcomed and decide to be and spend time and spend money. And then a number of the vendors that you are also displaying in there are part of your community. So vendors who are not able to get shelf space in other places are able to get them in your store, which I think is really, really important. So I'm going to open it up to the audience for a couple of questions. If I have one now, I'll take it. Otherwise, I will chat with the... Oh, we need my mic?